I want to start with a feeling that I think is probably painfully familiar to a lot of us.
Oh, I know the one.
Yeah, that sensation where you are working so hard. I mean, you are grinding, your team is putting in the hours, but you just feel like you're spinning your wheels.
It's the treadmill effect. A ton of movement, a ton of sweat, but you look up and you haven't actually gone anywhere.
Exactly. You're busy, you're exhausted, but you're not seeing that exponential takeoff.
Yeah.
And the gut reaction is always, okay, I just need to work harder.
Or I need to be better. But what if the problem is actually that you're already good?
That's the paradox we're diving into today, right?
Yeah.
The good enough trap. The whole framework we're looking at suggests something pretty radical, that the biggest thing holding you back from being truly great isn't failure, it's competence.
It's being good enough to survive, which
Yeah.
feels counterintuitive.
It does.
Mm.
But we're not talking about luck today.
Mhm.
We're definitely not talking about some magic moment where it all just clicks. We're getting into a very specific, very disciplined framework.
They call it the physics of greatness. And physics is really the right word. This isn't just, some motivational fluff. We're talking about the actual mechanics, almost like engineering, of how an organization can go from just average performance
To what exactly?
to generating results that beat the market by nearly 7 times.
7 times. That's a huge number. I mean, if you beat the market by 2 times, you're celebrating.
It's massive. And the mission for this deep dive is to walk through that process step by step. We're going to open up the black box and look at the exact inputs that get you that kind of output.
Okay, let's get into it. The guide starts with a very specific, very powerful image. I want you to picture this. A massive, heavy industrial wheel.
The flywheel. This is the anchor for the entire concept.
And when we say massive, we're not talking about like a bicycle wheel.
No. Think a 5,000-pound metal disc on an axle. It's huge. And it's sitting there, completely motionless.
And your job is to get it spinning. Now just imagine the physics of that. You lean into it with all your might, and it barely moves an inch.
It takes this incredible, heroic effort just to get that first grinding rotation. But you keep pushing, and eventually you get a second rotation, then a third. And with each one, it gets just a tiny bit easier.
And the key idea here is discipline transformation. That word discipline seems to be doing a lot of the work.
It is. The flywheel tells you right away there's no quick fix. There's no single miracle moment.
Yeah.
It's all about that slow, steady, cumulative effort. You just push, and the momentum builds until eventually the wheel's own weight starts working for you.
So if the flywheel is the metaphor, let's look at the actual numbers. Does all that pushing really pay off? Got a chart here that compares the general market to these so-called good to great companies.
And the difference is, honestly, it's shocking. The general market line, it shows steady but pretty low growth. You invest $1, you end up with about $56.
Not bad over a long period.
Not bad at all. But then you look at the good to great line.
And it ends up at, what is that, $471?
471.
Wow. That is a massive gap. But here's what really gets me on this chart, this little marker they call the transition point. For 15 years before that point, these great companies,
Yeah.
they looked totally average.
Exactly. If you were a stock picker during those 15 years, you would have completely ignored them. They were performing at or even below the market. They were boring.
But then, boom, they hit this transition point. And the line doesn't just curve up, it goes vertical.
It's a hockey stick. They start generating cumulative returns at least 3 times the market for the next 15 years. And the final tally is that 6.9 times the general market.
Okay, my cynical brain sees a spike like that and immediately wants to say, they got lucky.
Right.
Right? Right industry, right time.
And that's the most common objection. But the whole philosophy here is that greatness is not a function of circumstance. It's not about luck. It is, and this is the key, largely a matter of conscious choice.
I like that. It's a little intimidating, but it puts the responsibility back on you.
Yeah.
So let's open the hood. What is actually going on inside that transition point? Because from the outside, it looks like an overnight success.
But inside, it's that black box of performance.
Yeah.
And the guide breaks it down into 3 very distinct stages. It starts with disciplined people,
Okay.
then it moves to disciplined thought,
Right.
and that culminates in disciplined action.
People, thought, action. In that specific order.
Always in that order. You can't skip ahead. And all 3 of these stages are what feed the flywheel. You have the build-up phase, that's all the unseen effort pushing the wheel, and that leads to the breakthrough phase where the results become visible to everyone.
It's a progression. Okay, let's start with stage 1, disciplined people. And this kicks off with a concept called level 5 leadership.
This is so fascinating because it just flies in the face of our modern obsession with the celebrity CEO.
Right, the charismatic genius, the rock star leader who's on the cover of magazines.
Exactly. Level 5 leadership is defined by a paradox. It's this strange blend of extreme personal humility plus intense professional will.
Personal humility. That sounds nice, I guess. But don't you need a huge ego to drive a huge vision? It feels a bit soft for the corporate world.
It sounds soft, but it's actually ferociously difficult. The guide compares it to level 4 leadership, which is that celebrity genius. A level 4 leader is ambitious for themselves, and they use this dynamic called the window and the mirror.
The window in the mirror. Okay, what does that mean?
When things go well, the level 4 leader looks in the mirror, they say, I did this, my strategy was brilliant.
I'm the genius.
Exactly. But when things go wrong, they look right out the window to assign blame.
It's the team's fault, the economy's fault.
Anyone but them. I think we've all worked for someone like that. The level 5 leader, though, they flip that completely. They're ambitious for the institution, so when there's a big success, they look out the window.
And they give the credit away.
To the team, to luck, to circumstance. They deflect the praise, but when things go wrong,
They look in the mirror.
they look right in the mirror and they say, this is on me, I take full responsibility.
And we have a case study here that just perfectly illustrates this. Darwin Smith at Kimberly Clark.
A classic level 5. And notice, you've probably never heard his name. He wasn't a celebrity. He was this mild-mannered, in-house lawyer, but he had this absolutely ferocious professional will.
What did he do that was so ferocious?
He made a gut-wrenching decision. Kimberly Clark was a paper mill company. That was its identity. But Smith looked at the brutal facts and realized the future wasn't in paper, it was in consumer products. Kleenex.
So he sold the mills.
He sold the mills, the core business. Wall Street thought he was insane. The media savaged him.
But he just ignored the noise.
Completely, because he was driven by what was best for the company in the long run, not his quarterly stock price. And that one decision ended up generating 4.1 times the market returns.
So humility isn't weakness, it's just focus. Okay, so once you have that level 5 leader, the next step is first who, then what?
This is the famous bus analogy, and it's another one that really flips conventional wisdom on its head.
Because normally you start with strategy, right? You figure out what you're going to do, and then you hire people to do it.
Right. You get the map, then you find a driver. This is no. You start with the people. The great leaders don't start with a vision. They start by getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and then getting the right people into the right seats.
But wait a second. If you don't know where the bus is going, how do you know who the right people are?
Because you're not hiring them for a specific skill set tied to a specific strategy. You're hiring them for their character, their discipline, their work ethic. Because if you have a bus full of self-motivated, adaptable people, they can drive that bus anywhere when the time comes.
I see. So if the market shifts and your old strategy is obsolete, you don't have to fire everyone.
Exactly. The people can adapt. And there's a law attached to this called Packard's Law. It's that no company can grow revenues consistently faster than its ability to get enough of the right people.
That makes so much sense. I've seen companies try to outgrow their talent pipeline, and the culture just, it collapses.
It's a danger zone. So the discipline here is about 3 things. 1, when in doubt, don't hire. Keep looking. 2, when you know you need to make a people change, act.
Don't drag it out.
Never. It's not fair to anyone. And the third one is really tough. Put your best people on your biggest opportunities, not your biggest problem.
That is hard. The gut instinct is always to send your best person to put out the fire.
It is. But if your best people are only ever fixing problems, all you're doing is maintaining. You're not building. To achieve greatness, your stars have to be focused on creating the future.
Okay, so the bus is loaded with the right people. Now we get to stage 2, disciplined thought. And this brings us to something called the Stockdale paradox.
This is one of the most powerful ideas in the whole framework. It's named after Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
For 8 years.
For 8 years. Unimaginable. And he was asked how he survived when so many others didn't. And he said it came down to this paradox. You have to hold 2 contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time. On the one hand, you must maintain unwavering faith that you will prevail in the end.
You have to believe you're going to get out.
You have to, but And this is the crucial part. At the same time, you must have the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality.
So you can't just be an optimist.
He said the optimists were the ones who died. They'd say, we'll be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and go. Then they'd say, we'll be out by Easter. And eventually, they just died of a broken heart. You have to face the fact that we are not getting out by Christmas while never, ever losing faith that we will get out eventually.
Wow. Okay, so applying that to business, how does a leader actually do that? How do you create an environment where people tell you the brutal truth?
You have to build a climate of truth. And there are 4 practical steps. First, lead with questions, not answers.
Be curious.
Be curious. Second, engage in real dialogue and debate, not coercion. Let people argue. Third, you conduct autopsies without blame.
I like that phrase. When something fails, you figure out what went wrong, not who messed up.
Exactly. And finally, you build in red flag mechanisms, systems that force data in front of you so you can't ignore it.
There's a quote here that sums it up perfectly. When you honestly determine the truth of the situation, the right decisions often become self-evident.
That's the payoff. The truth usually tells you what to do next.
Okay, sticking with disciplined thought, we come to maybe the most famous diagram in business theory, the hedgehog concept.
This comes from that old parable, right? The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing.
And the hedgehog always wins.
Always wins, because it does that one thing perfectly. So in business, you have to find your one big thing. But it's not just a guess. It's about finding the precise intersection of 3 circles.
Okay, walk us through the 3 circles.
The first circle is, what are you deeply passionate about? What really drives you? Circle 2 is, what can you be the best in the world at?
And that is a very high bar. It's not, what are we pretty good at?
No, it's a brutally honest assessment of what you truly have the potential to be the undisputed best at. And just as important, what you cannot be the best at.
In the 3rd circle.
What drives your economic engine. And this is more specific than just profit. It's understanding your profit per X.
Profit per X, what does that mean?
It means finding the one single denominator that has the most impact. So for a retailer, is your driver profit per store? Or is it profit per customer visit? If you realize it's profit per visit, your entire strategy changes. You stop focusing on opening new stores and start obsessing over the experience inside your existing ones.
And the hedgehog concept is that sweet spot right in the middle where all 3 circles overlap.
That's it. You need all 3. Passion and best in the world with no economic engine is a hobby. Best in the world and an economic engine with no passion. That's just a grind.
Okay, people, thought, and now the final stage. Disciplined action. We have a matrix here comparing a culture of discipline with an ethic of entrepreneurship.
This grid really explains why so many large companies become slow and bureaucratic. If you have high discipline but low entrepreneurship, you get a bureaucracy.
That's the classic big, slow corporation. Rules for everything, but no innovation.
Right. Now flip it. Low discipline and high entrepreneurship.
That's a classic startup. Total chaos, lots of great ideas, but no follow-through.
Exactly. The magic quadrant, the goal for a great company is the top right, high discipline and high entrepreneurship.
Which creates freedom within a framework.
That's the phrase. You have a very rigid discipline system. That's the framework. But within that system, people have enormous freedom and responsibility to act. You manage the system, not the people.
And a big part of this is fanatical consistency, adhering to that hedgehog concept with what it calls religious intensity.
That's the discipline. Once you know your hedgehog, you say no to everything else. And the most powerful tool for this is the stop doing list.
We all have to-do lists.
We do. But great organizations are ruthless about their stop doing lists. They actively cut things, even profitable things, that don't fit perfectly inside their 3 circles.
That takes a lot of courage. Speaking of distractions, let's talk about technology. Because today, every company feels this pressure to chase the next big thing, right?
It's a huge trap. In this framework, technology is only an accelerator. It is not a creator of momentum.
So technology itself can't make you great.
Never. The decision-making process is a simple flowchart. It asks one question. Does this technology fit directly with your hedgehog concept?
And if the answer is yes,
then you pioneer it. You become the best in the world at using it to accelerate what you're already doing.
but if the answer is no,
You ignore it. Or you just settle for parity. You don't let fear of missing out drive your strategy. Mediocre companies are motivated by a fear of being left behind. Great companies are motivated by an inner compulsion to be excellent.
okay, so we've laid all the groundwork, the people, the thought, the action. Now we come back to that image we started with, the wheel, the flywheel effect.
This is where it all pays off. Remember that build-up phase?
Mhm.
The pushing and pushing and pushing.
And for a long time, it feels like nothing is happening.
Right. To the outside world, you still look boring. But if you keep pushing consistently in the direction of your hedgehog, the momentum builds. And eventually you hit that breakthrough point. The wheel starts to spin on its own.
And there's a really interesting point here about alignment. It says you don't really create alignment with a big speech.
No, you don't. Alignment follows results. When people start to see and feel that massive wheel spinning, when they see the tangible results, they want to get on board. They align themselves. Success creates buy-in.
No, what's the nightmare scenario? What's the opposite of the flywheel? There's an anti-pattern here called the doom loop.
The doom loop is, it's painful to read because we've all seen it happen. It starts with disappointing results. So, leadership panics. They have a reactionary response without any deep understanding.
They just do.
Something, anything. Usually, they fall into the savior trap, they hire a new celebrity CEO with a brand new vision, or they pivot to a new fad.
Or they make a huge, splashy acquisition.
Exactly. They try to BUI growth instead of earning it, but because they keep changing direction, they never build any momentum in the flywheel, which leads right back to disappointing results. And the whole miserable cycle starts again.
It's a death spiral.
Okay.
So let's say we avoid that. We get the flywheel spinning. How do we keep it going? How do you go from just great to enduring?
This is the final piece. It's represented by a yin and yang. You have to balance two forces. Preserve the core and stimulate progress.
Preserve the core must be about values.
Exactly. Your core ideology, your values, your purpose, that stuff never ever changes. It's your anchor. But everything else, your strategies, your practices, your goals, that stuff has to constantly change and adapt. Yeah.
And that's where BHAs come in. Big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yes, but with a crucial distinction. A good BHAG is set with understanding, based on your hedgehog. A bad BHE is just set with bravado. It's just a wish without a plan.
That's such a critical difference. We've covered a ton of ground. Let's just quickly recap that final checklist to cement the whole model.
Sure, it's a great summary. First, disciplined people. That's level 5 leadership plus first who, then what.
Then disciplined thought.
Confront the brutal facts with the Stockdale paradox and find your hedgehog concept.
And finally, disciplined action.
That's a culture of disciplined freedom in a framework and using technology as an accelerator.
And all of that feeds the accumulator.
The flywheel. Consistency over time.
It really is a complete system. And it comes back to that final quote. Greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice.
That's what's so empowering about it. It's not about waiting for a lucky break. It's about making these specific disciplined choices day in and day out.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive. It's a lot to take in, but the roadmap is so clear.
It's simple, but it's definitely not easy.
Before we go, I want to leave everyone listening with a challenge, one that comes from that culture of discipline idea. We all have endless to-do lists.
That's right. They never get shorter.
But if you really want to get your own flywheel spinning, you have to make space. You have to clear away the things holding it back.
You can't push forward if you're being dragged sideways.
So here's the question for you to think about. What is on your stop doing list right now? What are you spending time and energy on that, if you're being brutally honest, doesn't fit? What do you need to stop so you can start to build momentum? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.